Why, hello there, everyone. It's Saturday, November 19th, and we're getting a head start on 2023 payroll. I know, payroll and tax. So let me explain what's going on. There's this file of created in Microsoft Excel and in Google Sheets that does a lot of what you need to do when it comes to recording payroll for your small business. And this is in any one of the US states. I've got them all in here. I've got all their tax rates. This thing's working for 2022 right now, but tax rates tend to change at least slightly every year in most states, so in some way or fashion. So I go through this time of year here in November and December, and I start to update all of the new rates in all of the new states. And as we do this, more people are interested in changing their payroll. It's the new year, and if you're getting gouged by one of the big payroll companies for hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month, you could totally do it yourself. You're responsible for remitting all this money to all the states and the federal government. It's always you that's responsible, even when you have a payroll provider. That's kind of the weird, like nobody has ever successfully said that they weren't responsible for their own business's taxes in court, that you always are. So if you are, why not get a handle on it yourself and use this program that I've created, which is super cheap. You can get this thing for 3 months for 75 bucks, and it'll do everything you want for the whole year as I update it for 2023. It's really cool. So I got a request already from Kelly in Maine, and Kelly in Maine is doing payroll for multiple businesses, and she needs help doing all kinds of different ways to do it. And this is a great example of what this file is capable of doing and all the things that it can do and how you change them. So let's get into that process. Like, imagine you had a business in Maine, everybody. Imagine you were on the coast. Imagine you were up in Orono watching a university hockey game. I've played the University of Orono's roller hockey club 20 years ago. Good town. I always like people from Maine. Everybody I knew from Portland. My roommate was from Kittery, Maine, actually, when I went to school. Great state. And so what do, right? You have a business, right? This is how easy it is. Let's talk about where you start. You start in the matrix sheet. And I've done an entire video about the extensive ways that you can change the pay periods with all these variables. But let's just assume there's one question I know I'm going to get, which is, oh, I have this thing set up for weekly right now if you pay the person weekly. Well, what if you pay every 2 weeks instead? How would you change that? You would click biweekly here. You would then start to look at your questions that are in light blue. Areas that are in light colored background can be changed. Dark fill background usually are formulas and you never want to touch them unless you have to override them for some weird reason. But generally light blue you do. So it's saying number of days after end of payroll period that paycheck is paid. That's just how many days after your pay period ends do you cut the checks. So if the first pay period ended on January 5th of this year, and you cut the checks on Friday, you'd put a 2 here. If you cut the checks on Saturdays, you'd put a 3 here. And actually, no, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. You would continue to put a 2 here, but if your pay periods ended on Thursdays, you would say, oh, the first paycheck came out on 1/8, and that means the ending pay period just got switched to the 6th automatically. See how this works here? You're only working with the light blue cells. And then you also have to change the number of pay periods that are in this biweekly year. And they should match this. It's already probably telling you what it should be. So you would need to change this to 26. Okay. And then you'd see there's no variance and it says, hey, things are looking good. Right. So let's back up and go back to our weekly version now, because the weekly version is more interesting because it has more pay periods and it makes the file bigger. And so if you have a weekly payer and you're paying weekly, you got to see how many employees you can fit in this thing, because it will really slow down in processing depending on how many different columns you have. So anyway, so we just set up the pay period frequency, and it can get a little more complex with semi-monthly and monthly to make sure that the dates start right. But it's generally pretty good, and I can show in other videos how to do that. Other stuff that's in the matrix sheet that you might care about are when I update all the states' deductions and stuff. I'm going to do it all here, and you'll see that this year is the year that I've last updated something, and they're all sitting at 2022 because most of 2023 rates are not out yet. Okay, so that's some of the stuff that goes on in the matrix sheet. Next, you go to your employee info sheet, and this is the main area where you're entering in information for your employees, and you're choosing your state of function, and you're doing your unemployment, you're doing all kinds of stuff. So let's pretend that we got a business in Maine that's got under 10 employees, okay? We can start by hiding all the, you can even delete them, but I'm just going to hide them for the purposes of this video. We're going to hide the rows of the employees we know we're never going to use, so we can shrink what we're looking at in here. And we can also see there's a Maine unemployment down here that we could leave, and we could get rid of all the other states' information. But this is kind of valuable if you're in the accounting industry and you're working with different states and you want to know where to find certain forms. You can leave all this stuff because I've got mapping of different forms for different states, and I will continue to update that. But this is what we care about, is the unemployment rate that you've been sent by the state for Maine here. And that the first $12,000 of wages of the employee are taxed. So whatever rate, you're going to just like put that there. Okay. So I just put one there for Maine. Now, the rest is filling out employee information on this sheet. You can put names, Stevie King, a guy I know from Maine, right? You get to choose which W-4 you're using, a 2020 year, a current year W-4, meaning 2020 or later. Really call that 2020 or later. Is that yes or no? Because it matters which question you need to answer. So like if it's a no, you need to put the number of deductions on their old W-4. If it's a yes and they filled out a new W-4, then they answer these questions over here. Okay. So that is one little weird thing that happens. So I'd like to get rid of the old W-4 altogether. I think it's time for us all to migrate to just a new current W-4. But whatever. Next, we're doing Stevie King's record because I already did the Ken Braverman record above it. So we'll kind of show you how this works. You also have the ability to change every single state, but we're working with just Maine, right? And it tells you what the questions are for Maine. So is Stevie King married? I think he is. How many allowances does he have? Let's say he's got a bunch of people he's supporting. He's got like 3, assuming that's an option on the Maine W-4. This column is not used. Local tax is not used because there's no local or city tax in Maine that I'm aware of. The way you could check that is by scrolling on this humongous list, which would not be showing if I remove all the other states, but there's no ME state designation for anything. It's Michigan, Maryland. So there's no local city that we're aware of or county tax that's built into here for Maine. If there is one, let me know and I will add them. State filing status. Okay, here it is a bit annoying while I have all the other statuses in here. It's kind of why I think I'll probably remove all of them when I do this one state at a time. So you won't have to scroll through all of this. You'll just have to look through this area, which is Maine single, Maine married at single rate. Let's say he's a Maine married, but he wants to be taxed at the single rate because he doesn't mind paying taxes, right? Now you fill out his W-4 questions, which are he's married filing jointly, I believe, probably. Did he check the box for having 2 jobs? I feel like he's got a ton of jobs. Let's say he did. And does he have any dependents? They're probably older now, but he's maybe taking care of people. I think it's still $2,000 per dependent. That may change in next year's publication 15 and publication 15T. We shall see. We'll say nothing for now. And then if there's a workers' comp type for some other part of this file, which I haven't gotten into, we can put that there. Birth date, phone number, addresses, cities. If you need this for pay stubs to show up on the pay stubs, you put them here. PTO balances. If these people have a PTO balance at the beginning of the year, you can type it in here. Let's say he had 100 hours and he accrues 2.3 hours per pay period or something, or accrue PTO per hour worked. Yeah, I had another formula where you could accrue an hour per like 0.02 per hour or whatever it is. There's a lot of things you can do with this. I believe they all work. I haven't tested them out in a while, but I think all the PTO things work. So, all right. So we're messing around, right? We just put in information for our second employee. Now let's go to our daily entry sheet. This is where we're going to have a lot of fun with entering in different types of data, all depending on the business that you're in. Okay. We're going to keep scrolling down here because I have some sample records in there for the first employee of Ken Braverman. Let's start entering information for the next employee, Stevie King. And let's start at the beginning of the year, 1st of 1/1/22. Oh my goodness, these are not formatted as dates. Are you kidding me? We gotta fix that. I can't believe that. Wow. I'm surprised these are not formatted as dates. Format. So basically, this needed to be a validation, and I guess it changed. So what you do here is everything here has to be a date. And you could also format in a special date where you actually get to see the day, which is oftentimes really helpful. So I've had questions like, I'll do it like this, where I'm like, let's format our cells. How do we do that in Google Sheets? We go to, is there a more complex date with time? It does. All right. So in Excel, it's a different one. But basically, you can have it so it'll say like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So it helps you when you're entering in stuff. It'll tell you which day of the week it was. But for the purposes of this video, we're just ignoring it for now. So Stevie King, does he have hours? Let's say he worked 8 hours. Let's also give Stevie King all types of compensation, right? Let's give him and show him all the different ways you can pay him. Put the date in wrong there. Oh, so there is a validation on it being a date. That's why I can't have the words showing, because it is validating that it's a date, I believe, for the most part. I hope so. So let's talk about, is he going to use PTRs on this day? Let's say yes, uses PTRs. Let's say he's doing a project. You can choose different projects from a drop-down list that I had created over here, where you could say, he's writing book, writing Scream. No, he didn't write Scream. I'm not talking about It Too, right? That's what should be the name. It's Too, and he's billing out $300 an hour, and he worked 3 hours on It's Too. Okay, what you could do is you could have the every time he works on It's Too, you could choose It's Too, and it's going to create the project pay, that $900 essentially that he's paid for that, if that's the same amount. Like if you have a business that does certain construction jobs at a certain rate or something like that, you can often use that. Or if you're have a structured fee for taking someone from one place to another, you can put those routes in there in that project area up top, and then you can just choose them from the drop down menu and also record them right here, so that you have now a table of all these things. If he worked on It's Too for these 3 days, right? You can see, like, you can track this stuff and track your employees' project type work habits as well when you record it this way. It's super awesome. Now let's say Stevie decided to work at a restaurant and he got $150. He would get more than that in tips. He gets $250 in tips in the night. And let's say that he does that for a couple of weeks so that we can have some more records, right? So what we've done is we've to 1,200. We've brought in some random records, and he's getting a lot of tips because I want to show tip compensation as well. So you just added your records and stuff, and you can also use, there's a time in, time out feature to create hours. If you want to type people's clock in and clock out time or paste them in, you can use this, but you'll still want to bring the final hours over here because and put them in their proper place. That's just help for you if you have a clock in, clock out export that you're using for this. Next is the pay period record sheet. So the pay period record sheet is enormous, but it doesn't have to be. So we're going to go through a shrink process. So I've got all 50 states formulas and all kinds of crazy stuff here. I never send it out in this raw form to anyone because it's way too much to scroll through. But I do send it out in a form that looks kind of like this, where we hide stuff that we don't need to look at and just fill in stuff we do need to look at. So does this person, all right, let's talk about let's just start scrolling. Most of the time you're going to use a filter, actually, and you're going to use the filter for a certain pay period. So you're going to clear and then just choose pay period 1-5. Let's try that again. Clear. And just, we'll say just 112. And then press OK. Now you're going to get each employee's pay record for that pay period that we're talking about. Now you start to answer questions about it. Do they have any additional federal withheld that they asked for? Do they have any additional state withheld? Okay, something like that. You can type those in there. So we're doing Ken's record here. What is this person's hourly rate? It's 25. Do they get a bonus in salary? You'll see that a bunch of hours were already calculated, and it figures out how many your total pay hours are for the period. So you just put in whatever the rate is here, and it's going to change. Stephen King's rate more, or it was like 300 an hour, right? Are there any garnishments? Are there any reimbursements? If you're reimbursing employees for things that are not taxable, maybe Stephen King got reimbursed for some trip that he went on because somebody wanted to pay for him, so they give him a $350 additional thing here for something. You would put it there. Do you want to tie a check number to this because there's a physical check number that you want to tie to this paycheck? Are there any withholdings? Are there like a 401k percentage that your business pays? Does the employer match that? Does the employer pay for health insurance that is, or does the employee, sorry, pay for some health insurance that's not tax deductible, or that is tax deductible, I should say. Maybe they have a portion of their check that goes to that, and that will come out as being pre-tax in the certain areas where tax should not apply to that. Employer health contribution, same thing, except that's not compensation. It's itemized out differently on the W-2. There's long-term life insurance. There's dental insurance. There could be AFLAC, like supplemental stuff that comes out that's not tax-free or is tax-free in certain areas. Depends. And I don't think AFLAC is tax-free actually, but we'll have to look. There's dependent care benefits. There's another one that I added on that's not, sorry, AFLAC is taxable. The stuff says what it is up here, right? So the dependent care benefits might not be though. So anyway, this is kind of as far as it goes with all the different things that you can withhold. However, the logic behind these things applies to other categories of similar status. So you can mix and match which one of these, what their titles are and stuff, and then tie it back to your pay stub, which is the point. So the pay stub gives you this resulting paycheck with all that information that we just entered in. Ken grosses $2,985. He pays $197 in Maine tax, $500 in federal tax, this FICA, this Medicare, and this is the net paycheck. And it just shows up like this. And on top of that, you can just toggle between pay periods, and the cumulatives and everything update perfectly, and the new one updates. And then you can also toggle by employees, right? Now, what's interesting about what's going on with Stevie King is in the pay stub, I'm missing some stuff that could be broken out better. For example, the tips, like he's got tips, remember, but we don't see tips on here, right? We don't even see very many hours in this pay period. So like, where did this compensation come from? Because it's salary or bonus, and it says current compensation. And the answer is we're missing tips, and we're going to add them right now. Current tip pay, because I had done it specially for a restaurant previously, but I didn't have it in the master version. And this is how quickly you add something to the pay stub. So how do you find out where this is? What is this, right? This is just a visualization pay stub for all the people out there, all the scammers that are trying to fake pay stubs and trying to like present them to get loans and buy cars and stuff. I do not condone that activity, but I know you search and you pay for this product to do that. So I am at least informing everyone of this, that if you want to update the pay stub and get it to work right, this is how you do it. People that are both using the file appropriately and people who are not using it appropriately. This is how you do it. So you're looking for there's a formula in all the other cells that's very similar to the one that you need. You need current tip gratuity pay. Where is that? Let's go find it by Control F and the word tip. Here it is, tips. Tips are showing up right here in column AJ. All right, well, how do we get that into the pay stub? You just copy another one of these formulas. It's in one of the other cells that has the numbers. Paste it here, and the very first formula has the reference of the one you're trying to add up. We just change it to AJ, pay period records AJ, and now we've got tips. And that makes everything add up all of a sudden, right? That's where all the money was coming from, was tip pay. Now, what about the year-to-date tip pay one? That's another column in the pay period record sheet. And it's usually right next to tips, but I think it's further over to the right because of the way I originally created this. Yeah, year-to-date tips is over here, and it is in, go back. What happened? Year-to-date tips is over here. It's BH is the column. So as we add this, we just want to change the formula to BH in any one of the other cells. It totally works. You just change this very first reference. Okay. So everything should be adding up now. 9,981. Does it give me a sum? It says min, give me a sum. Oh, cool. 9,006. Uh-oh, it's not adding up. 9,681. Not 1,981. So there's an additional $300 coming somewhere. And that's probably this times the rate, is what I'm guessing is going on there. Right? Because it's 12 times 25. Yeah, there's the 300. So essentially you could have another column calling it hourly compensation, like total hourly compensation, one could say. If you really want to break it down even more, you can see it's just endless what you can do. And that's just going to be this times this. But it's complicated a little bit. I'll tell you why. Because what if your hourly rate changes from period to period? Then it doesn't work right. And I think that's the reason why I didn't do this originally, is even though this doesn't add up to this, that's because you also have hourly compensation and hourly rate that's not subtotaled, even though the hours are subtotaled. So I'm pretty happy with the gross compensation number here the way it is, because that is an important number. And let's do that. So you've got a paycheck. You can do, like here in Maine, you do not need stuff for Oregon. Maybe you definitely don't have Aflac at any of these businesses. You can just delete it right off. It's fine. On the pay stub, you can delete stuff. Pay stub's kind of yours. California ETT tax, done. Like you don't need that. You don't need this Oregon stuff. So all that stuff's going to go, but it's there for your state if you are someone who's not in Maine, and you're someone who's using this for something else. So the next thing you do, because you now got your pay stub done, is you now have your quarterly reports. And this is really the beauty of the file, is you just choose the quarter and everything just changes. And this just fills out your 941. And if you want to look by month or by pay period, the only trick is you can't just do this and be like, oh, I want to see February. Then everything shows up as an error. You have to just choose February. You can't choose quarter and month and pay period. You have to just choose one, which is why it says or. If you just want to look at a pay period, you have to get rid of February and then look at a pay period. And this will break it down. And it will also show you the breakdown of all your employees. And we extend this out for as many employees as you need, and their breakdowns of key information. And then you have your state reports for your state tax reports, which are right here. And so in this situation, you then get to see what your withholdings are, and you get to remove things like California EET tax, Oregon tax. You get to, if there's no paid family leave in Maine or state disability in Maine, you get to remove that stuff off, and you just have basically this. So, and it's same idea about changing quarters and looking at pay periods. So everything's just automatic. Imagine this is what you do to do your reports at the end of the month, is you just browse this, and then you go fill out a PDF, or you fill out online when it asks you for the numbers in these order. You just type them in because they're sitting right there for you. You don't have to do any math in your spreadsheet because you already did it when you entered in everybody's pay record information. It's all just, I try to minimize the data entry so that you just do as little as possible. And you're also aware when you need to change something, you just have to change it in like one place and then you're good, right? So it's entering employee information, it's entering in daily information in all types of different forms. Then it's going to the pay period record sheet and making sure you fill out your pay record for everybody for the period by putting in their rate and any bonus and any of these other extra things that you need to use. And then it's going to the pay stub and generating their pay stub and choosing it. Then at the end of the month or quarter, when you have to pay money or file, you just browse and you choose the month you need and you have your numbers and what you need to deposit, $1,668 for February. And at the end of the year, you have W-2s by every person that breaks down all of their compensation levels and pre-fills out their W-2 so that you can You do have to manually type the W-2s on the SSA website on Business Services Online at the end of the year, which is a little bit cumbersome. It doesn't automatically upload them, but so what? Like, that's why I said it's for small businesses, not for businesses that have hundreds and hundreds of employees, because you need a bigger service than just a Google Sheet for that. But if you've got under like 20, I mean, yes, like why pay hundreds of dollars a month to a payroll service when you can just do it yourself and have it at your fingertips, right? And change pay periods, do everything. I always thought that like accountants and other people that are doing others payroll, in smaller businesses, they're really my market for this because you can do any state with this, any business. Like you can run around picking up as much business as you want with this file and then piggyback on my updating of it, whatever you need to, just by subscribing to it. So I expect to have a broader base of people other than just small business owners, but also that group too. So, guys and Kelly, that is Maine, and that is Maine in all of its different forms. And I'll be doing more videos about more states, especially when the tax rates become updated a little further on here in December, most likely. All right, good luck. Payroll should be easy. Make it so.